Yo, yo, what's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to a new video. It's been a few weeks. My bad. I been pretty busy with recording, finished up a project, which will include this track. Obviously, I'm not going to play the track fully because it's not out. I'm not sure when it will come out, but it will come out one of these days. But it is a track that I produced, and I'm in the middle of mixing. And there's a new technique that I've been trying to, kind of hone in on and I don't know, try to just master it and make it something where I'm just like, this is going to get me to the finish line like 50% faster, which I think it will. And it's also useful for people that don't have low end, a good low end source, or maybe your room can't handle low end, whatever the case is. Low end is obviously going to be always the hardest to achieve when it comes to taming in your room, mixing, all that kind of stuff. It's always going to be difficult to work with, no matter what. But I think with using this multiband technique that I'm about to explain, hopefully it would help you, especially if you mix in headphones. I would say I'm like 70% in headphones, and then the rest I would say I'm finishing on my small speakers that I have here in my room. But this is a technique that I was inspired by Sean Everett. I watched his little mix with the masters video, and yeah, I've seen it before. I know he's talked about it before. I don't do exactly what he does, but I do like the idea and I understand what he's trying to do when he's listening for this. But I kind of put my own little twist on it because it was kind of by accident. It wasn't really me being like, stopping and pausing the video. I kind of just wanted to listen to what he was saying. He was explaining why he uses this and the way he uses it and all that stuff. And I was just like, all right, let me take that same idea and let me try to apply it to my own workflow and my own mindset when it comes to mixing and, make it a little bit more friendlier to, yeah, just the way I do things. So, um, basically, what we're doing is that we're going to just listen to frequencies of the song. And in this case, I'm just going to be playing the instrumental. So I'm focused on the drums and bass and anything mid range like percussion, stuff like that. Obviously, the vocals would play a huge part in this. But um, you can see, I mean, just to go through it and explain quickly, like how you would set this up or how I've been setting it up. This is only the third or fourth mix that I've used this technique on. I've also updated my template. So if you purchase my old template, I will make a video on the new things that you can, upload into that template, or I might repost the template on my website. And if you haven't bought it already, I decided to keep it for $20. I was gonna raise it to 100, but I was like, you know what? So many people, way more people bought it than I thought they were. A couple people are still buying it and stuff like that. So, if you want to, use my template or whatever the case is, if this is something that you're interested in, it's still on my website. You can go in the description below, um, and my website will be there. And also drop a follow on Instagram, all that stuff. And yeah, but if you want my template, if you want all this that you see, all this routing and stuff, all my presets and all that, will be in my template. As long as you own the plugins themselves, then obviously my presets will show up. I didn't reset any of the plugins or anything like that. It's exactly my template and my starting point. So for $20, go pick it up if you want. Yeah, and I appreciate everybody that's showed up. But anyway, so the first thing I do is obviously for me, and I've always done this. This has nothing to do with this specifically, but it does help. Is I go in and I get a good balance of everything. I go through the whole mix as a whole, start bringing up faders and sounds and panning and all that stuff. Get all that stuff out the way and settled, and then I go in because it gives me a better idea of what I need to do on individual tracks as a whole, specifically with this technique we're going to be talking about as a whole. So let's just assume that I've got my balance right now. This is now I'm moving on. If we're going by steps, which we're not, but in this case, if we are going by steps, the next step I would do in my process, my new process now is I got my balance and everything. I would just solo up the band, right? So you can hear and you can see that I have filtered this band, and you can use any multiband, any multiband compressor. This is the Pro Tools compressor. You just need a multiband. You don't need anything fancy, anything expensive, cheap. Just long as you can solo up the frequencies, and you can trust that the filtering is good. Because sometimes filtering can get weird when you're when you're selecting stuff like this and moving stuff around and shifting bands and stuff like that. It can get a little wonky sometimes when it's not a good multiband or anything with where you can select frequencies is what I'm trying to say. But for me, this is built into Pro Tools. This is their version of a multiband compressor. It works great. It doesn't color or anything like that. So yeah, like I said, for the most part, any multiband will work. But what you want to do is essentially, I like I'm just trying to picture, like, when you're at a concert or you're standing outside of a club, whatever the case, and you get that, you can hear the bass, right? You can hear the bass up to a certain frequency. And then as you get closer and closer to the concert, then the mid range starts showing up, then the high end, all that stuff. That's kind of the same mindset and technique that I'm trying to use here. I'm like, what, what can what can help me hone in on low end more, mid range, and all that stuff, and just try to find those frequencies split up, as you can see, and figure out what points make sense for you. Like I said, for me, from 20 hertz, let's assume that it goes down to 20, like it says. So 20 hertz up to 155 hertz. That is the low end information that I want to hear, right? And then for my lower mid range, 155 to 800, and then 800 to 5K, and obviously you can see 5K and up. I just want to go through and figure out, like, what is my frequency spectrum that I'm going to be messing with all the time. And you can see I went ahead and made a mix bus start because obviously per song, it's going to change for the most part. But so far I haven't had to change anything. I feel like these are pretty good selected ranges or whatever. So basically what you want to do, and what I have been doing, is I'll solo up, right? And you can see that I've already gained 2. So it's like, once you get your balance and everything, you want to just use this as, how much more low end do I want in my mix? How much lower mid? How much upper mid? And basically what I've been doing is I've just been compressing it to my liking if it needs it. For low end, I always think low end compression is great. Um, but instead of just saying, like, okay, I want my mixes, or I want this mix, or I want the song that I'm working on currently to have more bass, let me just do that by raising the individual, which is a way you can do it. That's what I'm saying. It's important to get your balance and get a good starting point on where the mix is going to start and the kind of end point that you're going for. But I think working in this way and just doing this, like, okay, do I want less bass? I'll turn it down. Do I want, sorry, like I said, I'm heavy in this mix. My computer's shitting the bed. I got to get like a Mac Studio or something because it's getting to that point, guys. M1 is not cutting it anymore. But I also think it's the plugin companies, not, whatever. Anyway, so let's just say I want my mix to have, I for sure want it to be a super bass heavy, whatever. So then I would take this and raise it. Okay, well, there we go. So boom. Sorry that my computer's shitting the bed. Bear with me, but hopefully this makes sense. So hopefully that makes sense. Like, it's just like you're just basically shaping the overall mix ahead of time. And I don't want to say this is this, because I had mentioned this in a couple videos before about top-down mixing. I don't want to get it confused with that because this is not going in and saying I'm always going to add this certain frequency, this amount of compression from the start. Like, that's just my starting point. That's the sound of my console, whatever the case is. That's not what this is. This is more of just already figuring out what the mix is going to start before you start doing that. And because we're doing this, this allows me to not have to work as hard individually, or meaning I don't have to do as much individually. You can see, I mean, I already don't use a lot of plugins. I mentioned this before, and I've showed off my mixes and template and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. But this is like also saving me from like having to feel the need to individually yeah, just raise stuff, lower stuff, whatever the case is. I'm also saving stuff on headroom at the end because I'm already kind of pushing my mix as far as it can go from the jump. So yeah, hopefully that's making sense. Hopefully this is making sense. It's kind of hard to explain. It took me a few days to kind of think about how to explain this because this is like just so, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like just very technical, but in the more of the sense of like just the way that I'm feeling and my headspace and all that stuff. So, um, yeah, hopefully this is making sense. So then then the second thing I would do, listen to this, like, all right, how much do I want that? Sorry, it's just so fucking slow. I tried to freeze tracks, you can see. Um, but then in doing this, also we can hear that if we have too much of something, this also helps you with figuring out what you need to take out. So let's just say, like, I remember specifically the kick and the bass were not gelling together, but when you would solo, you could hear the problem. Um, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know what it is about this. I guess because you're so focused on the specific ranges, in this case, 4 different ranges of your mix, it kind of gives you an extra layer or an extra magnifying glass of like, okay, what am I hearing? Why are these two frequencies not gelling? It's just a way of like being able to mold bigger areas of your mixes than trying to focus on little areas of your mixes, if that makes sense. That's really the key. Maybe that's what I should have said at the beginning. Like I said, I'm just trying to explain this and hopefully this makes sense because this is like a very technical thing that I'm trying to talk about because like I said, this is only like the third or fourth mix and I'm still trying to learn as best as possible, but I understand the idea that I'm going for and it's been helping me. And yeah, so anyways, it just allows you to hone in on these bigger frequency ranges of your track and hopefully that's an extra layer of like, okay, I can hear that the kick is not working with the bass because maybe my kick still has too much low end, which I think was an issue on this mix. Um, like when I would play the track alone, I'm like, okay, it sounds great, but like the low end is still a little flubby, but I'm already filtering my kick a little bit too much, whatever the case was. But then when I did this and I soloed, I was like, oh, actually it's kind of the opposite. I can lay off the filtering. I just need to make more of a focus point on the kick. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. Like I said, this has been super helpful for me when it comes to mid-range, getting the mid-range and the low end to balance a little bit better. And yeah, like after like the first or second mix that I took to like my AirPods and just random listening devices, like in this case, the artist was from out of town and came here to Chicago and was at an Airbnb kind of situation. And they had speakers there, and we would, I would mix and stuff and we were doing all the recording. And then when I would bring the mixes back for the next session, we would play them on the speakers. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is like actually translating pretty well. And I feel like because I've been mixing this way, um, it's just helped a lot. Now you can see also, not to mention, obviously, there's way more plugins going on before this multiband. But I will say that when I get my balance, even though it's later in my chain over here, does not necessarily mean that like I'm, activating all these. The only ones that I've been activating, like once I get like I said, this is kind of very difficult to explain clearly, but once I get my balance and I figure out my bands that I like, and I'm like, okay, this is the amount of low end that I think I want, this is the amount of mid range that I think I want, then I go in and I'm like, okay, let me now get my sound, my console sound, my Pro Tool sound, whatever the case is. Obviously, you can see these are EQ points that I've done, I'm sure later on, but um, you know, I've just got all my harmonics set up. I like a lot of harmonics. I think I've talked about that before. And then my actual, mix bus stuff. This master is more of like my quote unquote console, my coloration. And then this is more of like, okay, my balance and my overall shine and stuff. And like I said, plenty of videos on my channel where I've talked about all these plugins. It's in my template if you want to go get that and stuff. But yeah, maybe this maybe this video does not make any sense at all, and I need to explain a little bit clearer. But hopefully I explained it well enough for you to get a little bit inspiration and maybe try this out on your own. Like I said, for me, this benefits for somebody that maybe doesn't have the best low end in their room, or like I said, if you mix on headphones a lot, like I do. Like I said, I mix like 70%, and then the rest I finish on my speakers. It just depends on the mood I'm in, but this has helped me a lot. And like I said, it's so far it's been helping me get to a more, finished sound, at least for what I'm going for. And it's allowed me to do a lot less individual track editing, mixing, whatever the case is. Um, and yeah, because it's just like you're kind of just already, I want to say you're mixing into it, but you're already shaping your mix and you're kind of just setting these little zones that you have already, pre-made for yourself in a way. And obviously you don't want to just stick to it. You want to adjust as you go and stuff. Like I'm sure I adjusted a little bit, maybe came back on the gain and stuff like that. But um, yeah, I mean, also maybe this is a way for you to have like your own sound, whatever the case is. So take it however you want to do it, but this is more of just about the actual usage of soloing up, bigger frequency ranges in your song and just learning from those instead of just relying on individual stuff. And, you know, maybe there's other ways to do that. Maybe there's other ways to achieve that and stuff. And maybe this won't work for you, which I'm sure a lot of people won't. And like I said, hopefully I explained enough where it makes a little bit sense. But like I said, I kind of got this inspiration, this idea from Sean Everett, which is one of my all-time top mixers and producers. And yeah, I understood what he was explaining in the video, and I've seen his older videos where he's kind of talked about it when he started doing it. And I was like, all right, I understand that. Let me try to do my own thing, or like let me just mess around with the idea that he's talking about. And I think I've sort of veered off to a different direction on how he would do it, and I think mine's a little bit less technical because I think he uses like a reference track and all that stuff, and I just don't. Yeah, it just doesn't work for me. So you don't have to always do everything exactly the same as you see other people doing. But anyways, that's pretty much it. Hopefully, it makes sense. If you have any questions, which I'm sure a lot of people will, maybe if this doesn't make sense, leave them in the comments below. Shoot me a DM on Instagram. You have to follow me. I know there's people that's been messaging me. I don't get DMs from people that I don't follow and vice versa. And it goes to my inbox that I can't see or don't get notified by unless I check it randomly. So you have to follow me first and then shoot me a message and then I'll get the notification. And yeah. So anyways, like, share, subscribe. I think I'm back on track the rest of this week for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure, for sure with other videos. And yeah, go purchase some plugins through my links below. It helped me out. Check out my other videos. Buy my template if this is something that you're into. I'll keep everybody posted once I make an updated template because I do have a UAD unit again. So I'm starting to use non-UAD native plugins in my template, which I already have a few. And I'm going to make a new template and new video and all that stuff and talk about some plugins that I haven't talked about in a long time or ever on this channel because, yeah, they were never native. So anyways, like, share, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Good luck with this video. Hopefully it makes sense. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll catch y'all Wednesday, or for sure Friday. Most likely Friday. We'll see about Wednesday. Anyways, peace.